Hello and welcome to Opening the Gates to More Listings for Estate Agents with me, Simon Gates. I'm delighted to be joined today by Dylan Maheson. Thank you very much for joining me, Dylan.
Thanks for having me on.
How was that pronunciation?
Perfect, perfect. After a lot of practice.
Yeah, for everyone listening, I felt real pressure to try and get that right and had to say it about 10 times before we hit record. It's weird. I didn't actually say this before we hit record, but I've got this like obsession about pronouncing people's names right, and I think it stems back to my mum. Her name is Badria, which is Badria, and
Okay.
it's Arabic for moonlight.
Oh, wow.
And no one can ever pronounce her name right, and it would
Yeah,
always annoy her over the years. So I think
yeah,
maybe it's just made me be really conscious of wanting to try and
yeah.
pronounce it
No,
right.
I'm the other extreme. I got called all sorts. I got called Thailand at school as well, which was like terrible. But
Did you say
I just,
Thailand?
yeah, it's not even the same letter. Yeah, like
Brilliant.
that. Yeah.
So you've just mentioned Thailand randomly as a country. We were just saying before we hit record about your heritage and being Sri Lankan, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure are the first Sri Lankan to come on this
Oh,
podcast,
that's a
as,
great quote.
as
Yeah.
you said.
Mhm.
So, random question: what on earth is real estate like in Sri Lanka? Do you know?
I wouldn't know too much. My uncle's a developer out there.
Okay.
What I would say is you'd be absolutely shocked at prices. So in Colombo, which is the capital,
Yeah.
especially the heart of Colombo, price per square foot is almost comparable with London. So you'd be shocked, that you can see, properties, a luxury flat, for example, at 500,000 dollars, in the heart of Colombo is just crazy money for the average local, right? So it
Wow.
does have a lot of diaspora that come from all around the world and invest back into the country, and that's what raises all these prices. Because otherwise, on wages over there, those are just crazy money figures on there.
Yeah. One thing which would definitely be on the bucket list for me would be to go follow the English cricket team and playing in Sri Lanka. Uh, be part of the bar
Yeah,
on the side.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, and some of the stadiums are really like atmospheric there. Like Gaunt
Yeah.
Stadium is down south and it's by the beach and that kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely. I
Cool.
might join you.
Well, let's do opening the gates on
Yeah,
tour. So
definitely.
jumping into estate agency, I said to you again before we hit record, I've got so many notes of questions I want to run through with you because I know there's going to be lots of value that you're going to give to the listeners, so no pressure on you, mate. But to start with, you are like I think the goat of networking. Like you seem to be unbelievable when it comes to networking. So can you talk to me about like how you got into it? Any advice you'd give to any agents about the benefits of it and what to do with it, and then also any tangible like business you've had out of it.
Sure, sure. I think it's only in the last couple of years where I've been really right self-recognized as that. I just think, yes, I have got a gift for connecting and networking. Before that, people would always say that as well about me, but I wouldn't use it as a almost a characteristic or a strength of mine as such, in terms of business. But I think I got it from my dad. My dad knew a lot of people, like just a crazy amount of people, and I think just naturally, I just love people. And so, where some people might not be fascinated by lots of different types of people, like cultures from all around the world and that kind of thing, I've always just been fascinated about what makes people tick and how their cultural background affects how they think and that kind of thing. So that's a natural thing. So for me, I never really look at it as I'm this networker because I just like people, and I think that's obviously stands me in good stead in the estate
Yeah.
agency business. But it also just means that I actually always try and look out for people. So, like, it might be an old friend or whatever else. Like the very first person I met at university when I was unpacking my boxes, I'm still in touch with him now, and I text him every few months and just say,
Right.
"How you doing?" and that kind of stuff. And so I do look out for people naturally, not because it's good for business.
So
And then, sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say but essentially you're doing it because you enjoy, like you said, getting to know people and helping people, etc. It just so happens that because you're not trying to get anything in return, the byproduct then is that you do get stuff in return from it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think just when the second part of that question about what kind of tangible business, I mean, I could just go on all day on those kind of things, but I would almost say that close to, at least 90% of my business is from networking, friends of friends, that kind of thing. So yes, I'm on social media, and yes, we do events, and that's obviously part of networking. But I think I mean, I can give so many examples, where it's been somebody even from 20 years ago or whatever that's just remembered that I'm in property or whatever and just got in touch.
Brilliant. And on the networking side of things and people, that kind of links into something I know we're both keen to talk on, which is like education and training. Because I know you're huge on the education training side of things. So I think we've got a captive audience because the people listening to this podcast are probably
Yeah,
interested in
yeah.
education training. Otherwise, I'm not sure why they'd be listening to us ramble on. But have you always been like keen into the education and training side of things when it comes to a state agency? Because you've got like 20 plus years experience, right?
Yeah, I've got 20 years experience in property, but not much in agency. And so I guess that I only started agency when I joined Keller Williams, actually. So that was just over coming up to 5 years now. So I think I felt not imposter syndrome, but when I joined, I wanted to learn everything there was about estate agency because people that were I was working with in my network were quite experienced already. And I didn't even know, when they'd use basic abbreviations like, I went on an MA. I'm like, oh, I wonder what that means. I didn't even know those kind of abbreviations. So I had to learn a lot, but also I just started to really want to develop myself as a person in terms of I just thought the sky's the limit in terms of how much I could learn just on people, just on lots of different topics. I've even read like sports biographies, business biographies, books on faith, books on personal development, and so I just became very curious. And it's probably only in the last few years that I've really accelerated the reading and the audiobooks because I'm a bit of a music buff as well. So when I was in the car, I generally would be listening to music. But now it's just all podcasts and audiobooks because I'm just so fascinated by what there is to learn and how I can apply it for my business. And it's very intangible, you could say. Like I can't say what I learned today I've put into practice tomorrow, but at the same time, when you've done that day in, day out, reading and listening, that all comes into everything that you do over time, and you see how you've kind of developed over time.
Yeah, brilliant. I was speaking to an estate agent earlier today, and I was quoting um, exactly what Safe Real Estate Agents by Phil Jones,
Mm-hmm.
and I said to him about the line, "Could you do me a small favor?"
Yeah.
And he went, "Oh no, you've told me about that before. I did it, and I got 5 Google reviews." And I'm like, so that's your tangible bit of reading a book, actioning it, and getting a result. And I was like, awesome. Well, here's some other things you could be using from that book.
Mm.
So yeah, it was nice to hear that because I think the next point I wanted to touch on with you is that education and training is brilliant, but that's only half of the jigsaw puzzle. You then got the implementation, the execution. So
Yeah.
for anyone listening to this who is now going, yeah, that's me. I listen to all this stuff, I read all this stuff, I don't do anything. What's like the best piece of advice you could give in terms of taking action?
Yeah, I would say that the hack with that is basically like to just take action together because I think you can make notes, you could look, have all the best intentions, but this is why we set up, I think, the book club which we did last year, and are doing a book club this year, and it's not even for property people the one this year. It's just pure like anyone that wants to just develop themselves. So we did Atomic Habits last month. We're doing How to Win Friends and Influence People this month, and
Yeah.
it's just that kind of collective learning where you're more motivated to learn, and you're more accountable to learn because if you don't read the book, then you feel bad turning up to the session and nothing to contribute almost. But also on top of that, it's just like the mutual encouragement. You share. Even when we did the Atomic Habits session last week, people what they get out of the book is so different to what you get, and
Yeah.
so just gets you this whole well-rounded learning just from one book.
So just on the book club then, because that was something that I did want to speak to you about. So for anyone who's just said, what who's just thought, well, hang on, what's this? What's this book club? I've not heard this. What's this? How do they find out about it? How do they get in contact to join the book?
Sure. I mean, the best thing is just to add me on any kind of socials and message me, and I can add them on. So it's a very, very casual book club that we run once a month, where we check in with people on a WhatsApp group weekly. But at the end of the month, we actually have a Zoom for an hour and talk about what we've learned. And it's very, we're not kind of we're all adults. We might not have had time to finish it or even read half of it, but it's just about getting people together. And that's from all walks of life. We've had teenagers on there, we've
Right.
had older people on there, we've had people not in business, people in business, whatever it is. So there's not a single person we exclude from it. So that's kind of that also adds to the whole breadth of what you learn, right? Because
Yeah.
people's perspective is so varied.
Brilliant. And you've mentioned Atomic Habits, you've mentioned how to win friends and influence people. I've just mentioned exactly what to say for real estate agents. So if we haven't already given enough book recommendations to listeners, is there any others off the top of your head where you're like, if there was a book in 2025 that an estate agent should read, what should it be?
I think so. The Full Fee Agent, which is
Yeah.
a great book. And I think outside, even if because I just think just to keep your reading broad. So even though estate agents should read, any business biography, like Chocolate Wars, which is all about Cadbury's and their rivalries, Shoe Dog, which is about the
Yeah.
story of Nike. Those kind of books, just to expand your mind as to what can be possible from your business, not just necessarily your estate agency.
Yeah, brilliant. And moving on from the book side of things, you said podcast. So apart from obviously this podcast, what are other podcasts inside or outside of the industry you listen to and would recommend?
Yeah, probably only a couple that I actively listen to. One is the MREA one, which is a Keller Williams in America generally. Most guests are in America and that most are highly successful agents. That's the only podcast that I've listened to every single episode without fail. It comes out on a Monday and I listen to it on a Monday on the way to five-a-side football generally. And High Performance, which is the Jake Humphreys one, which I really like as
Yeah.
well. Probably those two are the ones that I would hand on heart recommend. There's other ones I dip in and out of, including yours. So yeah, those are the two.
So for anyone listening, just quick little plug here. If you do like the High Performance podcast, go listen to episode 100 of Opening the Gate Small Listings, where I interviewed Professor Damien Hughes.
Oh wow.
Still pinch myself that I had that conversation with him. And it was absolutely epic because
Mm-hmm.
I had no estate agency background. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really interesting hearing his like viewpoint of high performance estate agency not being an agent. And just to go back to that, like I think one of the things he said to me, and God, it must be like over a year ago that we had the conversation, but he said about the thing that really annoyed him was the process took a lot longer than he thought it would. But if the estate agent just told him at the start, it's going to take from sale agreed to completion, it's going to take 4 months, he would have gone,
Yeah.
okay, that's cool. But he
Yeah.
assumed that it would be done in 2 months.
Yeah.
So it's that key point of um,
Preparing them up front. Yeah.
yeah, and not to be a bearer of bad news. It's just be completely transparent with it, rather than being smoke and mirrors. So that was a big takeaway I had from it. And then just going back to something else you said, and I thought I saw it on LinkedIn earlier when I was doing the research for this. Was it actually March 2020 that you?
That's right. Yeah, the month of COVID. Yeah, which I think actually had its advantages because like I said, I wasn't from an agency background, and so I was able to learn a lot. Keller Williams linked in with a lot of American training, so I was able to just join Zooms and learn very quickly, and also do all the stuff. Setting up a business has so many kind of little hurdles to go through. In terms of like setting up your bank accounts and business cards and all that marketing stuff. So I was able to do all of that while the market was closed. And so when it was open, I was really kind of raring to go and ready to go.
Yeah, that is interesting actually. And I guess at that point there were, let's say, estate agents who were already established. I guess they went into one of two camps when the market closed down, we're in lockdown, where they went, well, it's a holiday, and others went, what can we do to make the most out of this? Look
Mm.
at the costs in our business. Is there anything we need to change? And I
yeah,
think there's businesses who have moved off a high street, for example, and gone into serviced offices, or they've changed their business model because of what happened there. And I think there's definitely businesses who've gone backwards because you think again since COVID, we're having this conversation over Zoom, the power of Zoom, the growth in video and social media. Yet there's still estate agents out there who are not doing video, doing social media, and they have fallen. They let's say they've stood still, but they've actually gone backwards, haven't they? Because everyone else has gone
definitely.
forward on that.
Yeah, yeah,
So social media is very important, and it's definitely helped me, promote this podcast, start a business, grow a business, etc. I know you've got a decent following on social media yourself. However, it is just a rented audience, and as we know, I don't know what the latest is at the time of recording with the whole TikTok hoo-ha in America, but that's a prime example of something like that can be taken away overnight. So I don't know if you're going to be comfortable answering the question that I'm going
hmm
to ask, but feel free to not share exact numbers.
yeah,
But you are huge when it comes to email and your newsletter.
yeah, yeah. And I'm
Are you
happy to.
okay? Are you okay to share how many numbers you've got in your email newsletter?
Yeah, totally. Actually, I've got 19,000 on my database, but I think out of that, there's about 1,000 that don't want to be getting the regular email. So 18,000 get them every 2 weeks. And I just think it's just the most efficient way of doing marketing because social media, if you think about it, every single social media channel has a different audience. And so if you think about, TikTok for younger people, Facebook for older people, I don't want to generalize there, LinkedIn for a bit more professional people, whatever it is, email for me captures everybody together. So, you don't want to be excluding people. Even if you've got a particular niche in your business, you don't want to exclude anyone from just knowing about what you do. Because if your speciality is first time buyers, you will have a parent that's 50, 60 years old that needs to help their kid buy first time. And so like the whole breadth of covering everyone on email just makes a lot of sense to me. And I also think it's quite efficient in terms of, you're sending out these blanket emails, and some people would advise against that. You should be sending a bit more niche emails for different audiences. But a blanket email twice a month is a very, very easy thing to do. So it's time efficient for me to reach as many people as possible.
And the reason I wanted to share that for everyone listening is you own that audience basically, right? It can't be taken away from you. And if my maths is correct, based on I'm just going to say 5 years of since starting, you're adding 10 people a day to your database, roughly speaking.
Yeah, something like that. I'd probably say that a lot of that comes from inquiries. So whenever I get inquiries in, they automatically through our CRM get added to our database. So that's a big part. And then I kind of really bulk it up with just events, but I do a lot of events regularly and they would be, 150 or even, yes, so 100, 150 people or even 50 people just in one day that subscribe to your newsletter just by coming to your stall at an event,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of.
And what sort of content? I mean, I receive your content, so I am on that database. So how start that? What sort of content are you sending? For those listening, who've gone, oh my God, this sounds brilliant. I need to send emails, but where the hell do I start? What do I send?
Yeah, sure. I try and keep it very balanced. I do use a company that helps us write it, but I keep it very balanced. So out of the two in a month, one would be a bit more property focused, either kind of celebrating our successes or giving some news on to what's happening in the market, or even just predictions for the future, or just analyzing trends. Sometimes I use some of the data you've been sending through, obviously. And then the other one would just be more personal. So it'd be something like what I got up to, listening to music or, running or whatever it is, just something that just like triggers people's interest. And not everyone's going to be interested in everything I do, but they resonate with different people. And I always have that kind of call to action, say if I'm talking about my favorite album of all time, I'll just say, what's yours? That kind of thing, just to keep the engagement going.
Yeah, I love that. I really enjoy. I'm not just saying I really enjoy receiving your email and the one from Paul Leslie as well. They're really good emails. And are you okay to give a shout out to who you use for those emails?
Sure. Yeah, Advantage 80/20. I've used them for 3 years now, and it was very painful looking back before that, doing my own ones because, I'm okay with tech, but I'm not, I would spend ages on Canva and all that kind of stuff, and it was just a waste of time, not in a bad way, but I know, if you can't engage in another company, you have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
But now I just think, well, I couldn't ever go back to that way of doing things. You'd end up staying up till 1, 2 in the morning, trying to just change formatting and that kind of stuff. So I leave it to the experts, but also people that write better. They're professional, and so they help you be more succinct with what you're trying to say as well.
A bit like you'd get the people who know how to video a property or photo a property, uh, to or actually that's a question for you. I wasn't going to ask it. It's just coming to my
Yeah.
head. Sales progression. Do you
Mhm.
outsource that or do you do the sales progression yourself?
Yeah, sales progression. I'll also give a shout out to Sally McCluskey of she's Harmony Property Support, and she's been brilliant. And since then, not just a time that you save, but you just have that mental capacity to do other things.
Yeah.
Knowing that yes, you need to still take responsibility to update your vendors, but and your buyers. But I think just more than anything, just to think freely that your primary job is just lead generating.
It's funny because you say that the primary job is to lead generate because if you don't have leads, you don't have sellers, and if you don't have sellers, you don't have money, you don't have a
Mhm.
business.
Mhm.
How much time do we actually within a state agency spend on lead generation? Like and I appreciate, once the sale's agreed, the sale needs to progress because you need to get paid. But it's the start of the funnel, the top of the funnel, isn't it? If you simply don't have leads, then there's nothing to come into the funnel. So
Definitely.
in terms of like lead generation, I remember when I came and did a talk at the market center, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but do you remember like the heat map I'd shown on a website, and you literally had gone out within, I don't know, 24 hours and
Yeah.
produced a postcard in
Yeah.
that heat map, and then I had sent it out. So again, going back to that point you made earlier of it's all well and good getting in the right room and surrounding yourself with the right people and being trained and educated, but you then got to implement the stuff.
Yeah, and especially that's where technology comes in. That's really easy. I use Spectre, and I just basically pulled up a picture of the heat map from the website you told me about, and then just the next day people were getting the postcards. Yeah, and it's very kind of arty, isn't it? It's quite unusual when you present data in kind of. It's almost like mixing art with data, that those heat maps, because people look at it and think, "Oh, that's quite interesting." Yeah.
Very good point, because I would obviously a geek like me looks at raw data and I'm in love, but for someone who's the other side of the brain, yeah, making it more creative, arty, yeah, 100% get that. So one of the other things I wanted to speak to you about was lettings,
Mhm.
because if I'm not mistaken, have you been like top bit? I don't know what the language is, but like top biller in lettings or one of the top billers in lettings. In
Yeah, I mean, so last year I was the highest lettings move-in number in Keller Williams. Yeah.
so for any agent listening to this who wants to generate leads for landlords and build a business that potentially is saleable one day, what were you doing last year to generate landlord leads?
Sure. I mean, it wasn't this. I mean, it's always been a big strategy of mine to just be speaking to landlords. But for me, I've had a big advantage in terms of just portfolio landlords. So that's the one thing that I'd say is like, if you do a job for a portfolio landlord and they like you, especially when they've had a bad experience with whoever they've been using before, they'll try you out with one property. Next thing you know, you've got 3 or 5 properties. And so I've got landlords, for example, that own blocks, with studio flats in them. And so it's kind of a no-brainer that, people don't think exponentially. Like if you do one good job for a portfolio landlord, you could suddenly have 20 new clients in one client, couldn't you? And that's, I think, one of the things that I've been blessed with over the last few years by just doing a good job for portfolio landlords.
It's like starting with what might be perceived as a small fish, and then
Mm.
it gets a bigger fish, bigger fish, bigger fish.
Yeah.
I think too many people go after I say here, agents. Well, actually, no, two. I'm going to kind of contradict myself here, but some agents will go all the way straight away to the big fish,
Mm.
not put the work in with the little fish to get to the big fish. So
Mm.
it's too much of a jump. But then I also get some agents go portfolio landlord. They're not gonna work with me. They've probably already got something in house. They've got another agent. But you've just proven you do a good enough job with one. You might then get the others to follow suit.
Yeah, and I think historically people have got quite complacent with portfolio landlords. Like if you've got a property, if you've got a portfolio of them of 20 properties, and you think, wow, all of that fees I'm getting in every year from management from them, I don't need to do much or whatever, they're with me, and all of their properties effectively pay someone's salary effectively. You can get very complacent about it, and it's very important to understand that it just takes another agent doing things better, not necessarily cheaper either, but just a more professional job, a more taking care of their stress a bit more than you do. And then they can jump ship quite easily as well. Just like changing like energy providers or anything like that, you're so reluctant to change, but if there's like I'm not going to start mentioning energy providers, but if there's a more efficient way to do it, nowadays you can just jump ship very easily, whereas in the old days, just almost stuck with them for life.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't mention the energy provider because I didn't want to get sued and shut down or something.
Yeah,
So something I should have asked earlier, so this kind of gone in a bit of a wrong order, and it
yeah,
comes back to where we started with networking. Um,
yeah.
I saw on the website around sponsoring, is it Ickenham Cricket Club?
Ickenham Cricket Club, yeah.
And then also you support a charity as well.
Yeah, there's a national charity called Transforming Lives for Good, and I actually worked for a charity before where I got introduced to them, and I just really resonated with what they do. I met the CEO, and so I just started being a corporate sponsor of them last year, and also maybe 2 years ago, and last year for Ickenham Cricket Club as well. It's just like from contacts again, it's networking, meeting them, not just plucking out a company or a charity that you want to support. But when you've met the CEO, you see their vision, then and they become friends effectively, then you're much more likely to be a donor, aren't you? So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's if we were to go back to 1990s estate agency, it would be let's put our sign on a roundabout, for example, whereas you're engrossing yourself in the community. Uh,
yeah.
so no, love it. Um, in terms of being self-employed, because you basically you've never worked as a traditional estate agent, right?
Right, yeah.
So how can I put this? In the self-employed world, there will be there is a like with any business, I guess there is a failure rate.
Hmm.
Now that could be from people who've got no agency experience. That could be from people who do have agency experience who go into the self-employed world. So for anyone listening to this who's like thinking about taking that leap into self-employed world, like
Hmm.
after your 5 years of business ownership, like
Hmm.
what advice would you give to anyone who's considering going into the self-employed estate agency world?
Yeah, I think maybe just even in terms of your personality and character and what the things that your pros and cons of what you can offer, does that match up with a self-employed lifestyle as well? Because some people, if you do really crave stability, it's actually not for you really. Like if you're not mentally going to be okay with the ups and downs of self-employed life, having a fall through the day before you're about to exchange, and then you were relying on that paycheck for the next couple of months or whatever it is, or just even just the highs and lows of entrepreneurial life. It isn't for everybody. So I always say that as well. If it's a match with your kind of risk profile, your personality, everything else, and we go back to the people thing. Like for me, I've always had been a people person and connected with lots of people, and that is just going to be a biggest asset as a self-employed agent. In terms of connecting with people naturally, not because your boss in your office tells you, you need to get on the phones and ring people. You're just doing it as a, we call it lead generation, but it's ultimately just doing life really if you're into this kind of thing.
Yeah. Um, so you've given some really, really, really sound advice as we've been going through this, but you can't have always been this oracle. You must have made mistakes along the way. So if we can talk about vulnerability and failure
Mhm.
for a second, is there any like failures you've had in the last 5 years which perhaps have then turned out to be things that have turned into successes because you've seen that failure and turned it into something? I haven't really worded that well, I don't think.
No, yeah, yeah.
One.
I mean, I've got a few ideas that come to mind, but I think the biggest thing is your self-worth. For me, I didn't. Uh, Again, it's not really imposter syndrome, but I wasn't from an agency background where I thought, oh, I can offer something to clients and it's worth a lot. So, for example, my first year or two, I would offer silly low fees, just to get business, and that actually is a cycle that you can get into because when you get a silly low fee, then that's basically what you think you're worth because that's what they paid you. But it also can be quite demoralizing, when you actually get your fee at the end of a deal and you actually look at how many hours you've put in
Yeah.
and you divide that fee by the hours and you think, is it actually even worth it? So it kind of is deflating for your own self-esteem and that kind of thing. So I think that's my biggest thing that I had to learn. Like I mentioned in the first few months of joining with COVID, I wasn't able to do many deals, and even so, you're kind of clutching at straws a bit. My first deal was a £140,000 house in Coventry, even though I'm based in London, and I charged 1%. And by the time you've factored in all your costs, you think it's actually not worth it. So I think it's really important to. I think you said it the other day, actually, on a seminar, didn't you? To charge what you're worth and be worth what you charge.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really big lesson for me that if I was telling people starting up from scratch, um, and especially it's more relevant for me because I have a lot of people that know a lot of people that refer each other to me. And so, like, the minute you said, your fee, then it goes around like wildfire what your fee is, and so you can't actually even increase your fee because, like, oh, how come you didn't charge that high fee to my friend and that kind of thing. So I think it's really, really important to set your stall up right and charge a fair amount.
Yeah, great advice. It's funny when you said your first listing and you said 140,000. For a second, I was like, you were going to say that was the fee, not the house price. And I was thinking, hang on a minute, if he was charging 140 grand fees back then, what's he bloody charging now?
I really
If
wish.
that was a cheap fee. So
Yeah,
just on that quickly then,
yeah.
um, how on earth does that happen? How do you go in your first listing being Coventry?
It was just a friend of mine that actually had bought there and they were abroad and they just said, would you sell it? And I thought, why not? I actually knew Coventry well. I went to university there and I was able to sell it to an investor fairly easy, actually. But, that's where I took it. And I still have that issue. That's probably my other biggest thing I've learned where no matter how many times they drum it into you that hyperlocal is the way forward as a personal agent, being, the digital mayor in your area, I still take out of area listings all the time. And the more you do that, the harder it is to take your local ones because you're just saying yes to the wrong thing sometimes. So that's actually, for me, probably my slowest learning point that I know that that's right and I still don't do it.
Yeah, interesting.
Mm.
Um, so in terms of like we've spoken sort of email, we've said a bit about social media and stuff there. Just on that as digital, is there any bits of like tech, like prop tech you use that you would recommend agents should be listening to? It could be something as simple as um, I don't know, something that helps improve your marketing, or it could be something for lead generation. Like, is there any particular piece of tech that you're really enjoying right now?
Gosh, good question. But I actually probably wouldn't say any particular thing. Like, there are a few apps and a few websites. But say, for example, Spectre, which I use, And I love how for me, yeah, because I used to be a computer programmer. You might not know that about me. My first job was British Airways computer programmer, and so I love interfaces and all that kind of stuff. And I think Spectre is really, really good for that.
Yeah.
And the fact is that you end up using stuff that's user friendly, because the interface is good, but that doesn't necessarily translate to effectiveness. And so that's one thing I kind of learned, that I'm trying to get away from, just the slickest, nicest tech that you can use. Yes, it might save you time, but you end up doing those things, as click a few buttons and generate a few letters. But are you measuring how effective that is, as opposed to even just doing a handwritten note and going and dropping it through someone's house?
Yeah, it's that balance of being efficient and being effective. So it's like you can click a button, have hundreds of letters go out and go, wow, I've been really efficient today. That took me 5 seconds.
Yeah,
You're like, but how effective is it? Because arguably it wouldn't be as efficient to go out and put letters through doors yourself. But do you go to put a letter through someone's door and a neighbour is there cutting their grass and goes, oh, are you an estate agent? Yeah, I am. Oh, do you want to come and value my house? Well, that's not going to happen if you just click send from the computer, you know,
yeah.
in your living room, your office at home, etc. So no, I think that's sound. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you think I should have asked you so far?
Well, I think just this all the stuff around the local neighborhood. That's the one thing that I would say. I've only moved into this area 2.5 years, and for us all as agents, I think, if yes, we're drummed into that, it's good to be hyper local, but down to the road, how many people do we know in our area, and just almost like start to map out the people you've met, in your area. And I think doing anything around local. You said about I sponsor the local cricket club, but I think just the simple things like the Chamber of Commerce, which I'm part of, the Hillingdon Chamber of Commerce. You don't realise how many. They're not all the same. Some ones are more effective than others, but the amount of people you can meet very quickly through joining on with other events. So Hillingdon Council, Hillingdon Chamber of Commerce, we're quite blessed in this area, got so many events on, and you just have to turn up to them and you meet so many people. And so I think for me, so I recently, not trying to blow my own trumpet, I got an award at the Hillingdon Business Awards a couple of weeks ago. And I think the number one thing why I got it, as opposed to the bigger companies that were there, was just they just talked about my community engagement. And considering I've only been in the community for 2.5 years, it's an encouragement to others that you can build a community very, very, very quickly nowadays.
So there's a couple of things I want to ask you off the back of that. First of all, that business awards, is this where you did a certain speech?
That's right. Oh yes, yeah. I might have sent it to you. Yeah, I was actually quite unprepared for that speech because I really didn't think I'd win. And my wife said on the way, "Have you got your acceptance speech ready?" I'm like, "What?" But anyway, I did. I did make a little jab at Man United as a Liverpool fan. Yeah, yeah. And that was actually ended up being a bit of a theme through the night from the host as well. So.
Good. So yeah, for everyone listening, we are huge Liverpool fans. If anyone didn't know that about me, yes, I do support Liverpool. And we are recording this the night after Liverpool. Sorry for any Spurs fans listening, but absolutely battered Tottenham 4-0. That might come back to bite me in the backside, but this episode will come out after the League Cup final.
Oh,
So
okay.
prediction for that final against Newcastle. What do we think the score is going to be? And we'll see if you were right when this episode
Yeah,
gets
yeah. I think that's a really hard one, based on injuries and everything, because it's still a few weeks away. But I do feel that we should win it. As we know, we called it the second Anfield, the Anfield South. So I think we feel like that, because I was at the game last year. So I think I'd go with 2-1 with Newcastle score goals. So either a 2-1 or a 3-2, but I'll go with 2-1. Yeah.
Okay, well let's see. The last time someone came on to podcast, who is a good friend of mine, Danny Lambert, he supports West Ham, massive West Ham fan, season ticket holder, and he predicted West Ham's win for the Europa Conference League.
Wow.
I
Wow.
think he actually got the score correct as well.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The other thing you said, and I just want to pick up on, because I don't know if I heard it right. So 2.5 years into the business, you changed, you moved house, did you? Or
That's right. Yeah. So I was in Northwest London, and then we decided to move to more West London, move my mum near us as well, just for lots of different reasons. But we kind of felt during COVID that that area wasn't our home anymore. So yeah, moved from Northwest to West London.
and that still clearly hasn't, that didn't impact business or stunt it. You're still,
Well, my biggest learning curve from there was just not to, it's almost like, in Spectre, you pick your areas as to where you're going to be sending letters. And I was still sending some to my old area, some to my new area. And the guy that was advising me at Spectre said, that's okay, but I wouldn't advise that. But I still did it for a bit. And that's when I realized that you kind of have to have a clean break almost. I know those roads inside out where I used to live. Obviously, I'm born and brought up there. But creating a new farming area almost is just like this clean, you need to have this kind of a fresh start and forget about the old. Obviously, you're not going to say no to business from the old area, but you can't farm two areas that are not even connected. If they're near each other, that's different. But yeah, in London, it's like just a different world going to Northwest to West London, really.
yeah, yeah. Cool. Right. Final question coming up.
Mhm.
So Diary CEO conversation cards. Let's see what question you're going to have. Um, okay. I don't really know what to make of that. Um,
Another one, otherwise.
yeah.
Okay.
So the question is, what is your rich life?
No, I actually really like that question because I do think a lot about just what is success and everything else. I think for me, going back to being people person, to be empowering other people, um, but also just helping people. So for me, yes, you can just say your life is all about helping your immediate family or just your close friends. But I do have a bit more of a wider kind of vision goal to have a rich life, which is to set up charities, fund charities, be on the boards of charities, whatever it is, but just to really have a wide influence in life. So I'm very, it's a bit unusual, but I'm very kind of inspired by people like the Quakers, from back in the day, which is like, the Cadbury's brothers and Henry Heights as well, and people like that. Just a lot of people from older kind of business generations where they really had massive impact on the community. You could say it's harder now, but just to have that real expansive, um, what's the word? Value given to just people around you, just improve people's quality of life. And I think a lot of that is just around community. So just a rich life where I'm able to build community, increase community cohesiveness, that kind of thing.
Love
Might
it.
sound a bit deep, but yeah.
No, I've got I say this every time at the end of the podcast, but these questions are, I mean, they're great questions. They're obviously going to be great questions because some exceptional guests who got on the Diary CEO.
Mm,
But the questions bring out some just brilliant answers, authentic answers, and it's really nice to get like under beneath the skin, like in a
mm,
good way
yeah,
of the people. It's just
yeah,
been refreshing every time. No one's ever gone like, oh, pass. Can we stop recording? I'm not answering that. Everyone's just giving like unfiltered, authentic answers to it.
yeah.
So hopefully I've not jinxed that. Long may.
No, I'm sure it'll carry on. But it's a great question, and I like those kind of questions as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I actually have ever said it on the podcast, but anyone who listens who likes those questions, you can go and purchase the Diary of a CEO conversation cards. That's from the second edition, so I've got two boxes. Don't think they're very expensive, but it's a good thing to potentially be asking to colleagues or to
Mm.
friends or your life partner, for example, to really
Yeah.
get a better, deeper understanding. Um, but no, it's been an unbelievable conversation. I knew I was going to thoroughly enjoy this one. I knew it's going to be lots of value be given to the listeners. For everyone listening, please do like, subscribe, review, share the podcast. And if you're not already connected with Dialam, please do connect with him, find out more about the book club as well. And that just leads me to say thank you very much for being an exceptional guest. I really appreciate it.
No problem, Simon. My pleasure. Thank you.